We are live and direct. We are live and direct. The broadcast was truncated by network. The broadcast was unceremoniously dismissed and terminated by the network. It is not by our own fault. We are not in charge or in control of the network. We have data. You can't believe that I have up to 7 gig worth of data, but I can't use it. Network in Nigeria. This is why we decided to stand for justice and truth and fairness and equity. Then country is I don't want to sound out of provocation. We must continue with what we have in our hands today. As the topic of the broadcast have been introduced, I'm bringing to the screen immediately the very document that has been guiding us in this very enlightenment broadcast. I don't want to be derailed by the network of Nigeria. So annoying. So annoying. Mr. Kanu was arrested, detained due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. United Nations. United Nations explains. This very explanation is coming from the revered body, United Nations. This is not Maxwell explaining. This is not the legal team of Nnamdi Kanu explaining, so that you will not say, oh, his lawyers, what do you expect them to say? Oh, they are the one talking. No, this is the United Nations speaking, that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and detained due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. Note the phrase, peaceful exercise of his rights. His rights, not usurping the right or the prerogative of the government of Nigeria. His rights. His right as an indigenous person. He was arrested, detained due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. The right he has is contested. The right he has to speak for his people and to demand for a peaceful referendum being conducted to determine the fate of over 70 million Biafrans. This very right is called inalienable right. He cannot be alienated from this very right. Mr. Kanu was arrested, detained due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. UN explains. Maxwell is not the United Nations. If you are angry, hearing my voice talking about this almost every day or every day, if you're angry that you are hearing my voice consistently and persistently speaking, or rather echoing this very voice of justice that speaks all the way from the United Nations in the favor of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu and the Biafran people, do not be angry. I am not trying to beg for your love or understanding, but I'm just trying to be so nice as a man of God. Don't be angry. You must be angry with the authorities or the governments that brought about the very need for us to talk. If there was no committal of crime, there is not going to be any judgment of this sort. We welcome it, and we will continue to do all we can to make sure that men and women of good conscience men and women of right understanding that is devoid of any kind of sentiment, that they will wake up spontaneously, that they will wake up in unison to make sure that justice prevails. Mr. Kanu was arrested, detained, due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. So says the United Nations, to, due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. We begin from where we stopped yesterday. And please, if you have not been following up after this broadcast, try and Google this very broadcast, this very enlightenment broadcast, or here on Engine Speak, search in the search box Pastor Maxwell in the way here. You will see all my broadcasts, enlightenment broadcasts, teachings and preachings, prophecies. If you go to the YouTube, the same. If you go to Facebook or Twitter, X, the same. If you go to Google search engine, the same. We begin from here. Paragraph 83. Look at it. The working group has already engaged in its discussion of the detention of Mr. Kanu in Kenya, that he was arrested and detained due to the peaceful exercise of his right. Where your right ends is where another begins. Where my right ends, that's where the right of another person begins. So we were told, according to the law, the government is trying to defend the indefensible. There was an amalgamation of this very country called Nigeria, and the condition of the amalgamation is that after 100 years of the amalgamation, any of the components of the amalgamated regions or tribes or nationalities that feel disenchanted, that feels uncomfortable, that feels that they are not well treated, that feel that they were sidelined, and they wish to opt out of the union, they are free to do so. Is it true or false? If that is true, then why persecute Nnamdi Kanu? Why are some gullible people who are full of ignorance join forces with those who love nothing but material things, who have sold their consciences to work very hard consistently to ensure that Nnamdi Kanu is not released? This is where we are today. The working group of the United Nations has already established in its discussion of the detention of Maz Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya that he was arrested and detained due to the peaceful exercise of his rights. And there is a reference to this very conclusion discussed in paragraphs 52 to 54 above in this same document. We have broadcasted about it from the paragraph 52 to the paragraph 54. We are done with that. We're not going to repeat it. What you're going to do is, after this very segment of the broadcast, you can go back, as I said earlier, to search for them. You're going to see them on this platform and other platforms I mentioned earlier. For the sake of time, permit me to continue. Take the message to them. If you are one of the aides of the government, be it at the federal level or state level, and you understand that your principal is in active connivance or participation of the opposition that Maz Khan has been faced with in his release, tell them to soft pedal, tell them to give it up. The working group notes that the source has argued the source is Bruce Fein. Everywhere you see the source in this very document, it is making reference to Bruce Fein. The source has argued the same in relation to Mr. Kanu's arrest, detention, and trial proceedings in Nigeria. Notably, the government of Nigeria has chosen not to address the substance of these allegations. The government of Nigeria chose not to address the substance of the submission of Bruce Fein, the international attorney of Maz Kanu, at the United Nations. The government of Muhammadu Buhari, the former president, deliberately chose not to address the substance of these very submissions made by Bruce Fein. That is what the United Nations is saying here. It is deliberate. They were given the opportunity to address in details, but the government chose not to do so. I am not saying it. The document is before you on the screen. Why have they chosen not to address this very allegation? Why have they chosen not to address the substance of this very allegation? Why? Why? I want you to think, ask yourself, why? What is the reason behind it? Why have they on their own chosen not to address the substance of the allegation? If you say that Mazen Namdekan is a criminal, is a warmonger, is a terrorist, he's working and fighting against the territorial integrity of the country of Nigeria, he's beating the drum of war. You have been speaking and writing, you have been acting it out in so many ways, different times, all the way from 2015 until today. That Mazen Namdekan